Hello and welcome back to Excellent English and Professional English channel. My name is Zorshadayo. In this video, we'll talk about semi-modal verbs. I have already covered several modal verbs as well as semi-modal verbs in my previous videos. If you haven't watched those videos, please do watch those videos and learn how to make use of modal verbs and semi-modal verbs. In this video, we'll talk about only semi-modal verbs, and that too, the modal verbs which we haven't spoken about in the previous videos. For example, dare to, need to, out to, used to, had better, and would rather, have got to. All right. So these are the semi-modal verbs we are going to talk about in details, and we'll try to learn how to make use of them using the positive statements, and as well as how to form negative sentences using these semi-modal verbs. And we even look into the question pattern of semi-modal verbs in details. All right, let's jump right straight to the presentation without wasting our time. Now the first semi-modal verb is out to. Well, out to is used to indicate that something is advisable, recommended, or expected to be done. It suggests a moral or social obligation rather than a strict necessity. It is often used in affirmative sentences, questions, and negatives. Let me give you some examples so that you can understand it better. Now, the first example, you ought to apologize for what you said. It's an affirmative sentence. Now, let us look at the negative pattern of the same sentence using ought to. He ought not to speak to her like that. Ought not to. All right? And now let us look at the question pattern of it. Ought we to attend the meeting tomorrow? Now, let us look at the other usages of ought to. Ought to is considered a polite way to give advice or make suggestions. It implies a sense of duty or responsibility without being too forceful or direct. All right? And there's one more thing that we need to keep in our mind. Unlike most other verbs, ought to is followed directly by the base form of the main verb without to. She ought to leave now. So you cannot use two to's there to say that, like, she ought to leave now is the right way of using it. Now the past form is ought to, does not have any past form. To express past obligation or advisability, the modal verb should is typically used instead. All right. So basically, ought to has the same usage of should. All right. So if you want to use it for the past obligation or advisability, you can make use of should. All right. For example, she should have arrived by now. All right. We don't have any past form for ought to. Similarly to should, ought to is similar in meaning to should, but it often implies a stronger sense of obligation or expectation. However, in modern usage, should and ought to are often used interchangeably in many contexts. Overall, ought to is a versatile semi-modal verb that is used to express various degrees of obligation, advisability, or expectation in English. Now let us look at the other semi-modal verb, had better. All right? This phrase functions as a semi-modal verb to express strong advice or warning about possible consequences. For example, you had better study for the exam. All right. You had better leave early if you want to avoid the traffic. You had better start saving money now, or you will regret it later. It can also imply a sense of urgency or imminent obligation, suggesting that it is in someone's best interest to act promptly. All right. Let us look at some more examples based on a guideline I just said. We had better finish this project before the deadline. You had better call the plumber before the leak gets worse. Threats or warnings, all right? Like in some context, had better can be used to issue threats or warnings, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. For example, you had better not cross that line if you know what's good for you. You had better stay out of trouble, or there will be consequences. Occasionally, had better can express personal preferences or desires, especially when followed by than. For example, I had better stay home tonight than go out in this bad weather. All right. Now let us look at the interrogative form. Well, in questions, had better is often used to seek advice or suggestions, implying that the speaker is considering uh, taking a particular action and seeking validation or guidance. All right. For example, hadn't we better leave soon? Had you better tell her the truth? All right. Now, overall, had better is a versatile phrase that can be used to convey a range of meanings, from strong advice and warnings to expressing urgency or personal preferences. It adds emphasis and urgency to the message, making it a valuable tool for effective communication. Now let us look at the other semi-modal verb, would rather. While it is primarily a modal verb, would rather can function as a semi-modal verb to express preference. For example, I would rather stay home tonight. Let us look at the present preferences of would rather. Well, would rather is commonly used to express present preferences or desires. It indicates that someone prefers or would prefer to do in a given situation. For example, I would rather go for a walk than watch TV. She would rather eat at home than go to a restaurant. Now let us look at the future preferences of would rather. It can also express preferences for future actions or events. It indicates what someone anticipates preferring or would prefer to do in the future. For example, we would rather travel by train than by bus next weekend. They would rather visit the museum than the zoo tomorrow. All right? Now, let us look at the negative form of would rather. Well, would rather can be used in negative sentences to express a preference against something. It indicates what someone does not prefer or would prefer not to do. Let me give you some examples so that you can understand it better. She would rather not to go to the party tonight. He would rather not eat spicy food. Now the interrogative form of would rather. In questions, would rather is often used to inquire about someone's preferences or choices. It seeks to understand what someone would prefer to do in a given situation. All right. For example, would you rather go shopping or watch a movie? Would they rather stay in town or go to the countryside for the weekend? All right. Would rather can be used in parallel constructions to express similar preferences or choices between two or more options. All right. Let me give you some examples. She would rather read a book or listen to music in her free time. We would rather go hiking or biking for outdoor activities. All right. So overall, would rather is a versatile phrase that allows speakers to express their preferences or choices clearly and politely in various contexts. It adds nuance and specificity to communication by indicating what someone would prefer or would prefer not to do.